In this video, you'll learn how to create professional video tutorials with OBS Studio, including screen recording, overhead camera shot, picture-in-picture effect with masked camera, graphic elements and animations. I'm going to show you my OBS setup that will allow you to click on Start Recording with peace of mind, so that during production you can focus on the content rather than stressing on the technical aspects. And this is exactly how I'm recording my YouTube videos, including this one. I'm assuming you're already familiar with OBS Studio, but if that's not the case, go to obsproject.com and download it for your operating system. I'm on Windows 10 and I'm running OBS 28.1.2. If you want to get started and learn the basics of OBS, go watch one of my beginner's tutorials. The links are in the description. I've created a new scene collection and called it Video Tutorial Recording. We'll look at the important recording settings in a minute. That's kind of boring, so let's first start with the creative work. There are two key parts in the creation process. The first one is to plan your tutorial. What are you going to record? Your screen, a camera, a second camera shot. If you don't have that clear yet, don't worry, because I'm going to show you a setup that covers most of the needs. The second one is to set up OBS in a flexible and simple way, so when you're producing your tutorial, you can focus on the content and not on the technical aspects. For my tutorial, I want a front camera, this one, then a second camera overhead shot, and then a screen recording scene. Each of them will have to include my microphone and the desktop audio. These are my three simple foundational scenes that I'll use throughout the tutorial. So let's start creating them. For now, I'll create three empty scenes. So let's first rename the existing default scene. I'll call it front camera. Then let's create a second scene and call it overhead camera. And then a third one and call it screen recording. We now have to add sources to these scenes. We could add the native sources, but actually there is a better way, and that is working with nested scenes. So trust me for a second and everything will become clear in a moment. These nested scenes are not going to be part of the production workflow, but will constitute the element of my foundational scenes. To make it visually clear, let me add a blank spacer scene. Just click on plus. Let's add some dots and call this spacer Scenes for Nesting. This empty scene only has the purpose to make it visually clearer. Below this, let's create one scene for each of the native sources. I'll call the first one front camera native. Then let's create a second scene and call it overhead camera native. And a third one and call it screen native. And now let's add our native sources in these scenes. I will now remove the camera that you see right now because I need it in the new instance of OBS that I've opened. So let's now go to the front camera native scene, click on plus, and add a video capture device source. And I'll call it Sony camera. Here I am. Click on OK. For the overhead shot, I will use my webcam, but if you want a better quality video, then you can use a second professional camera or your smartphone camera, which is usually very good. Let's go to overhead camera native. And here, let's add another video capture device. I will call it webcam. And choose my USB camera. The camera is pointing at my Wacom tablet because let's say I want to do a tutorial where I will be showing you how to do graphic facilitation using this tablet. The third native source is the screen. Click on plus and add a display capture. I'll call it laptop screen. As I'm using this screen to record this tutorial, then you'll be seeing this infinite mirroring effect, so apologies for that. Now let's add these scenes as sources in our production scenes. And actually, let me create a divider scene to make clear that these are the production scenes. And let's put it here. So let's go to front camera and add the front camera native scene as a source. Here we are. Then let's go to overhead camera and here add the overhead camera native scene as a source. Don't worry, it will become clear in a second why we're doing this. Last thing, let's go to screen recording and add the screen native scene as a source. We now want to add the elements that we want to use on demand. So let's create another divider scene and call it on-demand scenes. The first on-demand element I will create is a masked camera. So let's click on plus and create a new masked camera scene. To create a masked camera, we will have to use our main front camera. If I add the native source here and apply a mask blend filter to it, for example this mask, the same mask that you've been seeing before, at first glance it looks that everything is okay, but actually since we have applied the filter to the native source, then this filter will affect all the instances of that source across our project. That means that if we go to front camera native or to the front camera production scene, then the mask effect will appear that too. And we don't want it, because in this scene we want the full camera. So here's the reason why we're working with nested scenes, because instead of applying the filter to the native source, we're going to apply it to the scene, thus leaving the native source filter free. So let's go back to the masked camera scene, remove the filter from the source, and then delete the native source. Instead, let's add the front camera native scene as a source in this scene. Now we can apply a filter to the scene instead of the native source. So let's right-click on Masked Camera, Filters, Image Mask Blend, and there we are. Now if I go to Front Camera Native or to the front camera scene, the full camera will be there, because the native scene has been kept filter-free. The second on-demand element is an animated lower third. So let's click on plus, call it lower third, and I will add a little pre-recorded animation. Click on plus and add a media source. Here it is. The third element is the agenda. Let's create a new scene, call it agenda, and here let's add a text source. How do we now make it possible that these elements that we've just created can be used on demand? And what I mean when I say on demand is that I want to be able to use those elements spontaneously, so that I can push one button and bring them in or out of the screen irregardless of the scene I'm in. I could add each of them to each scene and add a move effect, for example, but that would require a lot of work and make our setup much more complex. A much better way to do it is with the Downstream Keyer plugin. I have a full tutorial on that I'm linking in the description below, so now I will not go into the details of it. You can go to the plugin page and download it here. After you've installed it, you'll see a new dock appearing in the docs list, and that's the Downstream Keyer dock. Click on it. Now go to the scene with the element that you want to appear on demand, for example, the masked camera scene. And once you are on the scene, then click on plus. The masked camera scene will appear here. So now if we go to Screen Native, for example, and we click on Masked Camera, you see that the masked camera will appear on top of everything. To remove it, just click on Pose. And we do the same with the lower third and with the agenda. So now let's say I'm in the front camera scene. If I want to display the agenda, I'll just click on it, and the agenda will appear. If I click on Pause, the agenda will be removed. The elements are just appearing with a cut transition, so let's make this a bit nicer. If you click on the element in the Downstream Keyer dock and then go to the cogwheel, you'll see the option for the Show Transition and Hide Transition. Let's use the Move Transition plugin to create a new Move Transition, where we want the masked camera to come in from the right and also disappear to the right. Let's click on plus, Move Transition, call it Move Right. And here in the settings, let's go to Appearing Items. I remove Zoom because I don't want a zoom effect, and I'll select Right. And the same for the disappearing items. I have a full tutorial also on the Move Transition plugin. Okay. And the duration is good, 750 milliseconds. So now if I go to mask camera, click on settings, and I'll apply the move right transition with a 750 milliseconds duration. So what about the agenda? Also, the agenda comes in from the right, but I think it would be a bit nicer if it came in from the left. So let me create a new move left transition. If we now apply the move left transition to the agenda in the DSK1 dock, then this transition will be applied to all of these items. Since I want to apply different transitions to mask camera and the agenda items, I will create a new dock here and call it DSK2. And now put the agenda in the DSK2 and remove it from the 1. So DSK2, transition, move left, and let's pick 750 milliseconds. Let's go to the front camera scene to test it. Okay, comes in smoothly, and also it disappears smoothly to the left. Let's go to the screen recording scene and then test what we have in the DSK1. Lower third, that works well, and masked camera. Good, it's coming in from the right, but actually there is a little bug that we've seen. That is that there is a little delay until the mask filter is applied to the camera. So it first shows as a full camera before actually getting the mask effect. I think that's because I've applied the filter to the scene that is used directly in the DSK dock. So the downstream keyer plugin first applies the transition and then the filter. To solve this, I'll put the mask camera scene in the scenes for nesting section. Remove it from the downstream keyer. And I'll create a new scene that I'll call mask camera DSK, where I will include the masked camera scene as a nested scene. Now I will add the masked camera DSK to the DSK dock. By doing so, I've included in the downstream keyer dock the scene that already has in it the masked camera, so I don't have the issue of the plugin having to process the effect. The other thing I want to do is to make the masked camera smaller, because I want a picture-in-picture effect with my mask camera at the bottom right. Let's make it smaller. And I think that's okay. So, back to screen recording. Now if I click on the masked camera DSK, the camera is coming in very smoothly. And if I click on the pose icon, it's also disappearing to the right very smoothly. We now have to decide what kind of transition we want to apply to our foundational scenes. At the moment we have the move left transition, but actually I prefer a fade transition. And I think the 500 milliseconds duration is good. So let's try going from front camera to overhead camera and to screen recording. I think that's good. As you've seen, there are many possibilities to make your tutorials look professional. And here we're only scratching the surface. So if you're looking for many more ideas and also step-by-step guides on how to do everything that you've seen today, including the Move Transition plugin, the Downstream Keyer plugin, how to make a mask camera, well, I have a full course for you. The link is in the description, so make sure you have a look at it at the end of this video. Now, the last step in the creation process is adding the audio. I want my microphone and the desktop audio to be added to all scenes across the project. To do that, let's go to File and then Settings. Here, let's go to Audio, and then in Global Audio Devices, let's select what we need. For desktop audio, let's enable it by adding the default desktop audio. And then for the microphone, I will add my Shure microphone that comes in through the Rodecaster Pro mixer. Click on OK. And now these two audio sources are here. The Sony camera source is not needed. It's been added by default when I added the video capture device, but the quality of the microphone is very bad. So let me mute this and hide it. Now I have my Shure microphone here and the desktop audio across all scenes. We have to cover an important and a little bit more boring part. that is defining the proper settings. We have to make sure that the video quality as well as the audio quality is good. The optimal settings will depend on the machine that you're using. I'm going to show you a light version of the settings, but if you want to learn this more in detail and maybe try to solve any issue you may have, then I refer you to my course. The easiest thing to do is to run the Auto Configuration Wizard. Go to Tools and then click on Auto Configuration Wizard. Click on Optimize just for recording and then click on Next. The base canvas resolution is the resolution of the screen you're recording, so I will leave the 1080p. Frame per second you can choose 60 or 30. If you're recording gameplay, then you should go for 60, whereas if you're recording software tutorials like mine, then you can also opt for 30. 60 frames per second give you a smoother video, but also loads your computer a little bit more. So give it a try with 60 and then do a test, and if you're not satisfied, then maybe you may have to change this to 30. Click on Next. And now OBS has determined the optimal settings for my computer. You'll be able to change all these values manually, but again, I'm not going to cover the topic in this video. And now click on Apply Settings. The next thing to do is to define the recording path, that is, where you will find your recorded videos. Go to File, Settings, Output, then here select Advanced Mode, and then go to Recording. Here you'll have the recording path. You can choose your preferred one. And then another important setting, that is the recording format. Let me close this for a second. OBS records by default in MKV format. The advantage of MKV format is that if your computer crashes, then you won't lose all the work, meaning that you'll have a file with the content that you've recorded until the time of crashing. On the other hand, the MKV file is not read by editing software like Premiere Pro. So what's the solution? Well, you should keep MKV format as the recording default, and then when you're done recording, convert your MKV file into MP4. Luckily, OBS has a built-in option to do that. You can do it manually by going to File and then Remix Recordings. Here you choose the file that you want to remix, and then click on Remix, and you'll end up with a new MP4 file. But there is an even better way, which is telling OBS to remix the file automatically at the end of the recording. Go to File, Settings, Advanced, and then in the recording section, click on Automatically Remix to MP4. You have to be careful to the way you're recording your audio. If you're recording your sources all in one audio track, that means that the audio will be mixed. So say you have a background music playing and you're recording a tutorial. Then you make a mistake and you want to correct that mistake in post-production. So when you edit the file, you cut it, you remove the part with the mistake. But as you have the music mixed with your microphone, then when you do the cut, this cut will show also in the end product. Instead, if you have the audio and the music on two separated audio tracks, then you can treat them independently. To set this up correctly, let's click on the three dots on one of the audio sources and then select Advanced Audio Properties. Here untick all the boxes. These are the available audio tracks, and OBS can record up to 6 audio tracks. The Sony camera, I don't want to add it to any track, whereas I will put my microphone to audio track 1 and the desktop audio to audio track 2. Let's close it, and now let's go back to settings. Now I have to tell OBS how many tracks it should record. So let's go to Output again, Advanced, and then Recording. And here, let's select the audio tracks that should be included in the recording. In my case, it will be 1 and 2. Let's say you need more audio tracks, then here you'll have to select also 3 and, for example, 4. It's now time to start recording and doing a test. To start recording, simply click on Start Recording. You may want to assign a hotkey to the Start Recording and Stop Recording. I've now stopped the recording on the other instance of OBS and hit Start Recording on the OBS setup that we did together. This is the front camera scene that can be used to welcome the audience and also show my lower third. Then I will introduce the topics of my my tutorial with the different agenda items, and then move to the first part of the tutorial where I'm going to show you my Wacom tablet. During the parts of the tutorial where I'm doing less but speaking more, then I can bring in the camera. Then I'll go back to the front camera scene for the next step and show again the agenda. Then move to screen recording, for example showing the software or actually the result of my drawing, and as before, when I'm talking, I can bring in the camera. At the end, I can go back to the front camera scene and maybe add additional graphic elements. Now click on stop recording and go check the quality of your video. And now the zoom in and follow cursor effect. If you're wondering how I'm doing this zoom in and follow mouse effect live as I'm recording, not in post-production, you can watch it right now here.